Palestinians need to rise up and say to Hamas that this is not okay. And Palestinians need to rise up and say, release the hostages. This is not right. Baby Bibas needs to come home.
Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, reporting on Vancouver's leg of the Walk with Israel rally that took place on June 9th. I'm standing at the May and Lorne Brown Park in Vancouver after the end of a peaceful demonstration that took place. It's the Vancouver's leg of the Walk with Israel march, and approximately 600 people showed up today. It started off with them marching across two different bridges. There was the Granville Street Bridge as well as Burrard Street, where I was walking with them and catching interviews. My colleagues were covering this in other places in Canada, including Ontario, which had a very large turnout with their Walk with Israel. And there was also a counter Walk Against Israel protest. You're going to be able to see their coverage at our special website called deporthamas.com. But first, don't miss what happens today. I wanted to speak with the people that showed up here to ask them, of course, why was it important to be here? How their life has changed since October 7th, what they make of both our federal government run by Trudeau and our provincial government run by EB when it comes to support for Israel or against it. So let's hear what they have to say. Why was it important to be in this march today?
For me, it's important to stand up because I think silence is complicity. I believe that we need to remind all of us that we have a lot of shared values with the democracy in Israel. And if anybody wants a ceasefire, release the hostages. And it's our right to want our children and our family members back home safe and sound. People are calling for the genocide of our Jewish community, and people need to step up, Jewish and non, and say that that is not okay.
I'm Israeli. I'm a Canadian. I was born in Israel, in Tel Aviv. I've been in Vancouver for 32 years now. And I'm proud to be Israeli. I'm proud to be Jewish. And the Jewish people won't lie down and just be a dog for somebody to, kick.
I am Israeli, I'm Zionist, and I'm a Jew. And it will always be important for me to show that Israel not only have the right to exist, but must exist for the rest of the world to stay safe.
I'm Jewish and I support Israel, and Israel needs support everywhere. And this is the only way we show it. We do it a positive way, not a negative way. Look at the people there with the flags, everyone. No one is doing it negative or screaming or trying to do violence. This is the only way we can do it. We can show support for Israel. It's the only way we show everyone that we're the good people.
And it's important for anybody and everybody to be here today. It's just standing up for what's right, standing up for goodness, standing up for protection of innocence.
It's been so many days since October 7. And we just want to tell the people in Israel, we're not forgetting you, and we are sharing the pain together.
Masha, now you helped organize this event. Why was it important to do that?
It was important for us to make just a very simple statement that Israel has the right to exist. Somehow a lot of people came to question that, and we disagree with that strongly. We feel threatened by it. We feel that that is a bad, hateful message, and we want to show our message to the world that we are peaceful.
And I see you had some Iranian people here too for their own protection. They wanted to be off camera, so there was no repercussion from their government. There was also a big turnout for the Walk with Israel in Ontario. No sign of the Prime Minister, though. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm disappointed but not surprised, because I don't feel like the Prime Minister has been standing strongly with our community. Not strongly enough for sure, because many people say that we've never seen as high anti-Semitism in Canada as we do now, for over 30 years at least.
The government always has something to say, even when they don't say anything.
We all know Prime Minister Trudeau is the epitome of anti-Semitism
dressed up in a I Love Israel suit, but we all know it's a lie. Prime Minister Trudeau does not love or support Israel.
Yeah, no, it's not surprising, by the way. Really not surprising. So, yeah, we know how his policies works, and this is who he is. Next time, we'll have a better one.
Trudeau's got to go. Okay, I'm not a Trudeau fan. Most Jews are not Trudeau fans anymore. We used to be. We used to all vote Liberal across this country, especially in Toronto. You used to see all the Jewish people turning out and voting Liberal. Not this time. Sorry. It's not going to happen.
As a Canadian and as a very proud Canadian, I have felt incredibly let down by the weak leadership, by the Liberals, and especially by the NDP, who I've shared a lot of values with, social justice-wise, but on this front, it has been despicable and hateful. And it's if you can say all the words that you want, but if you don't back it by action and protect communities, whether it's Jewish or other minorities, words mean nothing.
Here in British Columbia, the governing party is the NDP. We had an MLA actually leave the party citing for anti-Semitism reasons. What do you make of our leadership here?
So NDP, the same like Trudeau government. For me, they're one and the same, The only party that should go is the Conservative. They're the only party who actually is right and honest and all for Israel.
You know, I voted NDP provincially. I've always voted NDP provincially because I think they've been a good government for British Columbia. But right now, I'm not sure about David Eby anymore. I'm just not sure.
David Eby, our premier, and his party actually doing quite the opposite. There is quite a lot of anti-Semitism coming from them, both hidden and open. Even just looking at the social media of some of the MLAs that we have here, or party members, and they are not standing with our community either. And we need more of their protection, actually.
Now, you served with the Israeli Defense Forces. Is there any common misconceptions that you think Canadians have about this war?
Well, yes. So the IDF goes out of its way to warn civilians everywhere that they are, whether it's the West Bank or the Gaza Strip. They do what are called door-knocking bombs, which is a small explosive that explodes over the house that tells them that their bombs are going to be dropped later. It's not a destructive bomb. It's just a loud noise, okay? They drop leaflets. They send texts. They send phone calls. And they also broadcast over the internet when it's available. What other army does that? What other army warns the enemy that they're coming and doesn't execute surprise attacks? And the hostages that just got rescued, that was one of the most brilliant special forces operations ever executed. And by the way, it was executed by police and by the Shin Bet, which is Israel's FBI. It was very little military involvement.
They don't know the real truth. They don't know everything. Like, they see the propaganda that the other side does, and this is how they know it. They don't know it from the right way. It's a fight between good and evil against evil. It's like terrorists against like humans that try to fight for democracy and everything.
This is a defensive war. It's a defensive action. 80,000 people displaced in the north, probably 100,000 people displaced in the south. And people need to get back to their homes. People need to be able to sleep at night without wondering if their children are going to be safe. October 7th was heinous. It was a travesty. And it requires and demands action, because the notion of it happening again is untenable. And the fact that Hamas has promised it will happen again demands some kind of response. Most of us couldn't care less what end of the political spectrum you're on. To the degree that you acknowledge Hamas is evil, that what they perpetrated was simply, barbarous, that's all we need to know.
This is about people that want to live in peace. That's what Israel is fighting for. It's not fighting to eliminate or anything like that. And that's the first misconception.
There is a lot of misconceptions that are unfortunately really propagated by the mainstream media, just like the example from yesterday's rescue operation that brought 4 of the hostages home, where all the titles go speaking about the casualties on the Palestinian side, which is of course tragic, like in every war. But first of all, the number is supplied to us by Hamas, so we can't take Hamas at their numbers, which unfortunately our media has been doing all way long, and somehow they never seem to question what Hamas is saying, and propagating this narrative, blaming Israel for everything, holding Israel solely responsible for everything, actually very much fuels the anti-Semitism here as well.
I think that people talk and espouse about a peaceful process, but they need to understand that Hamas is calling for the annihilation of Israel. And they're openly saying that in their charter. And that's all every Canadian should go up and look for themselves and understand that they want to end Jewry and that they don't respect the fact that we actually are an Indigenous group to the land and to the region. We understand and want Palestinian civilians who are innocent in the conflict to be safe as well. But Palestinians need to rise up and say to Hamas that this is not okay. And Palestinians need to rise up and say, release the hostages, this is not right. Baby Bibas needs to come home.
The basis of Jewish thought is appreciating the gift of life. If there's anything that Israel actually wants, is to preserve life, both for Israelis, but also for non-Israelis and Palestinians. It's very unfortunate that we're in a war, and it's very unfortunate that our opponents don't value life the same way we do. In fact, they put children, women, and innocent men too, besides their guns, because they don't really care about their lives. Israelis would never do that.
What do you think about the word Zionist being thrown around? There's a lot of talk about, I'm not against the Jews, but I'm against the Zionists. Do you think that there's a misconception around there that Canadians think?
100%, Drea. This is just their way of showing differences between Jews. There is no difference. We all Jews, we all Zionists. Zionist is merely think that Israel is our country and we should live there in peace.
Zionism, that people somehow use as a bad word recently, it's not a bad word. And the one thing that it actually means is that Israel has a right to exist. The Jewish people have a right to self-determine their ancestral homeland. So we want to reclaim the word Zionism and say that we are Zionists, because there is nothing wrong with that. And actually everyone should be one.
How has your life changed since October 7th living here?
I live in Canada for 15 years, and I lived in Israel before that, but I came to believe that Canada is my home. And unfortunately, I don't feel home anymore because I don't feel safe. I haven't experienced physical violence so far, but I see a lot of hateful messages, both from crowds on the streets, but also from elected officials, which is completely shocking, because people without consequences at all let them say publish on social media or in media things that are unbelievable and impossible to imagine being said about any other minority or any other group at all.
We didn't let us enter like McGill University or something like that because we're Jews, basically.
Should have called Rebel News.
Rebel News was there.
Oh, okay, there you go.
There's a certain innocence in a way that has been shattered. The safety of security, some sensation, I feel less safe.
Yeah, may I add something? We were just chatting the other day. As I was born and raised in Alberta, and I no longer actually feel that we're free anymore, because we can't just state what we feel like anymore without fear of repercussion. We can't walk freely with anything that's visibly Jewish without worrying about if we're going to be okay. We don't have confidence in our universities. We have teenage boys who at the moment are okay, but we regularly talk about what is Plan B, what is Plan C, which is absolutely absurd and unacceptable in a so-called democratic and free country where everybody's fundamental rights and responsibilities should be thriving.
One of our synagogues was attempted arson to set on fire just recently, the Shaarei Tzedek Synagogue. And, I never thought I'd see that in Vancouver. I thought Vancouver was a tolerant, accepting, vibrant, cosmopolitan and peaceful city. And I see now that it's not. And these white students and white people that are shouting from the river to the sea and shouting Intifada don't really know what they're saying. I lived through the first Intifada in 1987 in Israel. I know what that was like. You want rock throwing and Molotov cocktails and burning tires and suicide bombs and rubber bullets and tear gas here? That's what an Intifada is. An Intifada literally shuts down your streets and destroys your society. And that's what they're calling for, the destruction of society, the shutting down of our streets, and the shutting down of our institutions, and the disrespect of our institutions, especially the police.
Well, if you also agree that when it comes to this issue, if you are in Canada, not a Canadian, but supporting a terrorist organization that is Hamas, you've got to go. You can sign our petition at deporthamas.com to take simple and fast action to do that. And if you appreciate the reports that Rebel News brings you with our boots on the ground to cover events like this, then you can also chip in a few dollars to help make those reports possible. Thank you for your support.